Okay, I think we're live, ready to go. So, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time you're watching this. My name is Andrew Richardson. I'll be taking today's lecture for your class. This is looking at special populations. So, we'll continue. So, again, the learning objectives for this session is just give you an overview of what a special population is, who they are, facts, figures on them, and what setting you may be working with them. Some of the prevalence rates of these special populations here in the Tees Valley, again, be focusing mainly on the Tees Valley just because this is our area of work. And then the main emphasis of this lecture will be tied into my research because my research does cover a lot of special populations because I'm trying to get a lot of people active from being inactive in the area. Looking at some of the early results and findings of said research and what you can take away from this to be a better practitioner. So, why do we need to know the population where we work? Well, firstly, so we can assess and see how we can market and promote ourselves as coaches, as trainers, and therapists, and the services that we offer. You need to know your audience, not just how they receive information via email, phone, or text. We need to be aware of what's going on in the area's population, from the health, politics, local government, buyers activity, and/or events, and to the facilities that actually promote it leisure centres, gyms, sports clubs, whatnot. If you do not know what goes on in different parts of town, then the chances are you may be stopping yourself and your business of future clients. So these are some factors that would promote a population's engagement and its well-being within an area. Green spaces, walkways, cycle paths, really good air, streets are clean, access to sport and leisure facilities, strong local economy, high level of employment, large scale investment and future investment coming to the area, community trust, tourism, crime very low. The factors inhibiting a healthy population, lower than average life expectancy, higher crime rate, education levels are low, drug and alcohol rates are prevalent, employment levels are dropping as unemployment levels rise. Again, they can't replace the jobs that they've lost for a particular area. Local politics, nothing's being done. Access and availability of facilities is scarce or scarce, I should say, or the transport available to get to them is difficult. By residents don't have the means of getting the money to actually pay for transport to get there, or it's just too far out of the way for them. It's a very unclean environment that by air, rubbish, pollution, whatnot. There's no real community spirit, high levels of inequality and high levels of poverty. So that could be financial, that could be heat, that could be fuel, that could be not having enough access to education. Digital poverty is quite a common thing people talk about now these days. So again, you can see how these things may affect a population. And then how can this affect you? Well, it's either going to increase your client base or it's either going to take it away from it. It may allow you to work in a leisure facility if there is buildings or structures there in place. You may have to work online if there isn't one, or you may have to work door to door. Again, so some trainers, clients, therapists bring their beds or there's some of the equipment with them to different clients' homes. That's uncommon. You may work online, you may use a park or an outdoor facility or just a general green space if it's there. Or if there is like a structure like a gym or sports and leisure facility, sports club, you can probably work in there too. Again, you'll have to adjust your rates by your services that you charge, the rates based on your area's finances. For example, you can easily charge £50 an hour for a one-to-one personal training session in London, but you're very unlikely going to get many people in Middlesbrough to pay for it, just because of the financial differences between the two populations. One is the capital, two, it's in the south of England as well, which generally is more affluent, and three, there's far less poverty and deprivation when compared to up here. So again, these are the factors you have to take into account. Also, for more of the high-paying jobs are going to be in the south than they are in the north. You would have to plan around clients' lifestyles in different areas. So again, you could be working with a lot of students because you have a lot of student population in the region, and or you could be working with someone who is retired, let's say. And again, two very different lifestyles, two very different sets of goals. So again, it's about you changing your goals with them. And then obviously for the area, is there a specific sport for the area or a town that you can affiliate yourself with, or are there multiple sports you could work with as well? So examples of potential special populations, this could be type 1, type 2 diabetics, the obese and sedentary population, hypertension and or coronary heart disease, mental health, that could be under anxiety, stress, or depression, cancer, pre and post operation, addiction from drugs and or dual diagnosis, which is a combination of drug and alcohol. Now, what I can do as well, so obviously I'm going to do another one just online because this will tie into my GP exercise referral. So I'm going to do one lecture where I go through each of these in just more and more depth. The only reason we'll be going into these here because I'm going to talk more about physical activity and well-being for my research. And again, if I try to do all these with this lecture, it'll be well over probably close to 200 slides. And I don't want to give you that by any means. No one wants us to sit and listen to someone talk over 200 slides, let alone me talk for 200 slides. So I'll split them over into two classes for you. So again, use this as like an opportunity to really think about your area. So with access to internet and a range of social media sites, Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, you could do some research and work out the target occupation job you want to work for. So if you're a therapist, you could target anyone who works in an office by helping them, relax more, feel more comfortable whenever they work, or you come in and do sessions in that business. Your target sport, so football players of all ages in the South Tees offer the first aid injury rehab support. A physical injury you could specialize in, look towards like lower back pain. Again, as a lot of people are sitting, driving, working from home. Again, you could really work and treat these and either go to like a door to door, business to business, or set up shop somewhere in a gym or leisure facility. Mental health intervention as well. You could look at, reducing stress and anxiety in students come to exams. Again, these are just four very, very simple ideas. And I'm sure if you applied this sort of like logic I'm giving you here, you could probably think of like hundreds of different other avenues, different other sort of sectors of the market you could put yourself forward as being the go-to expert in. But what we'll do is now we'll go forward. Now I'm going to explain how the Tees Valley has become a special population in its own right, and some of the features and themes that have happened over the years that have led to what it is. So I've got a picture. I've got like fast food, health, or the health inequalities, crime, drugs and alcohol, just as an example. So this image here and the images after, I'm currently working on putting down every known fast food and takeaway service in the Tees Valley. This is simply just see, the frequency and of it, so how many there are. So I've only done for Hartlepool, Redcar, Cleveland, and Middlesbrough. Still have to do Stockton-on-Tees and Darlington. This is just every site, every fast food outlet and takeaway service of Just Eat and Uber Eats still have to do delivery. Secondly, I want to see the density. So where is it kind of pulling around? Where's the main areas? Then thirdly, I want to be saying, okay, how does this compare to, deprivation, poverty, ill health, crime, inequality, inactivity, and a whole range of other potential factors, just to see, is there a trend? Is there a correlation? Is there a theme? So that way I can also help inform, like health policy for the actual region. So again, for all three of them, they all sort of pull around the town centres. So just for these three local authorities, I've got 332 takeaways or fast food joints logged. So mainly in the centre and Linthorpe wards of Middlesbrough, the town centre of Hartlepool, and the town centres of Redcar, Marsk, and Saltburn. So we can sort of see where there is. Once I add in Stockton and Darlington, I'll have a better picture. And then what I'm also going to do is for each of them, I put my postcode into the Just Eat and Uber Eats apps, but also postcodes for the town centre for Redcar and town centre for Hartlepool. Then I'm going to draw a radius around it, and then it'll show yourselves, readers, just the area and the radius that these fast food joints have influence over, and shows how due to I won't say just due to COVID-19, but due to the Western lifestyle, which is quite sedentary, working from home, convenience food, time, not obviously coming home from work, training, whatnot, or other social activities, you may not actually have food prepped and whatnot. So it's just easier to order food in. Just showing you how far and wide like these takeaways actually can operate in, and some operate between a 5 to 10 miles, quite common. Others go up to 20 miles. So it's just by trying to actually show you, how far and wide someone may order a pizza or parmo and whatnot. That isn't to like say, everyone who orders one is going to be unhealthy or going to be physically unfit. However, there are some trends that should be made aware of when you look at and you compare all these sets of data. So the next one. So this was inactivity in small areas. So small areas being wards within the Tees Valley area. So yeah, we've got Hartlepool, Darlington, Stockton, Middlesbrough, Redcar, and Cleveland. So the areas in red they reckon that the adult population is over 30. It's over a third of them are going to be inactive, as in they don't do any sort of activity whatsoever. And then this is all from the Sport England Active Life Survey from 2017 to 2018. And again, what we can sort of like see is like it's the town centres of Hartlepool, like Redcar, and then the centre wards of Middlesbrough, which are highly inactive. And if we were even just to go back a slide, we can sort of see that's the higher level of takeaways in these areas. Is there like a correlation? Perhaps, but correlation doesn't mean causation. So again, if we look at other sets of data, so let's look at emergency hospital visits. This is from 2013-14 to 2017-18. So again, SOT is Stockton-on-Tees, just for clarification. So we've got Darlington, Stockton-on-Tees, Hartlepool, Middlesbrough, Redcar, and Cleveland, just broken down over the slides. So Darlington, from its data set, and again, the links to all these data sets at the very end of the slides. And if I haven't put one in, just ask. I'll happily forward on to you. It's got higher than national average for combined genders for all causes. So that's all different types of emergency visits or ER visits. So regardless of it, it's higher than the national average. Coronary heart disease is 120 over 104. Chronic obstructive pulmonary disease 120 over 110. And myocardial infarction or just a heart attack is 143 over 103. Stockton-on-Tees, again, all cause 123 over 101. Coronary heart disease 146 over 104. Chronic obstructive pulmonary disease 167 over 110. And myocardial infarction 164 over 103. Hartlepool, again, similar story. All causes 126 over 101. Coronary heart disease 155 over 104. Chronic obstructive pulmonary disease 195 over 110. Stroke instead of stoke, that should be. Stroke is 125 over 110, and myocardial infarction 173 over 103. So that's very high. So again, obviously, Stockton-on-Tees again very high. Darlington it's still very high. Then the last two, Redcar and Cleveland, all causes 119 over 101. Chronic obstructive pulmonary disease 160 over 110. Stroke 125 over 110. Middlesbrough, 144 over 101 for all causes, coronary heart disease, 120 over 104, chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, 242 over 110, myocardial infarction, 133 over 100, and stroke, 136 over 110. So this was taken from the Sport England January 2020 reports on local authorities. Again, they're all linked in. And the rule was if an area had a number over 104, 104 or 103, or the number used for each subscale being stroke, heart attack, coronary heart disease, whatnot, it would say as a line, if if the factor, if the number is above 104, let's say, then this is an unusually frequent amount for this area because it's higher than the national average. So, likes of 133 for, I say, heart attack for Middlesbrough was over 100 for the actual national average per. I think it's either per 1,000 or 100,000. I think it was 100,000. Again, looking at all of that data and the lack of physical activity portrayed 2017-18 and the fast food outlets frequency, starting to build a picture here. Again, this one here, I don't expect many of you to come across this. So this is the index of multiple deprivation table, which combines 7 different types of domains of deprivation covering crime, education, health, housing, and a few others, employment, unemployment, and looks at how deprived and areas within England. This is only specific to England, and they've been doing reports since the year 2000. But the way it works out is that the deprivation reports are published in year 2000, 2004, 7, 10, 15, and 2019, but they're always for a couple of years behind. So it's really, you're probably looking at 2017, 2018 data, then 2019 it is then published, just so you're aware. And what we can see is that as an IMD score, the regions of the Tees Valley are consistently scoring in the top 100 deprived areas, or LSAAOs, being like local super output areas, based on how they're actually scored. It's when they put a combination of wards together to form an LSAAO. And it's just a way of measuring and actually working out in smaller levels, what the difference is, what's going on with each area. And it pulls together a lot of data from, let's say, your census data, activity data, crime data, NHS data, environmental data, employment, local economy data, and it's just trying to build a picture of what's going on within a local region. So what we can see is likes of Middlesbrough, Hartlepool, Redcar, and Cleveland, they are consistently not outside of the top 20 most deprived areas based on their local concentration rank from the year 2000 to 2019. Stockton-on-Tees, again, in like the high 20s, low 30s, and Darlington, again, was closer to 100th just over 20 years ago, but now it's pushed itself right the way down back to 32nd. Now, other things to take into context with this here, over the years, it depends on the region within England. Some areas receive more investment than others. For example, likes of London for the 2012 games, Liverpool via EU funding, Birmingham, because Commonwealth Games coming up as well, and then a few other cities over the years where major events have been held, or major sporting events, cultural events, city of culture bids. They have propelled these areas out of the top 100 based on their wards and boroughs, and this as well has kept some of the other deprived areas in the top 100. So it may not be that the deprived area, based on their actual score when you break it down, has gotten worse, but when you compare to other areas, it hasn't improved, hence why it's stayed there. So that is a factor. However, when you look at the area of the Tees Valley, there has been consistent uh, negative factors that have influenced it to staying in this area. Again, over the years, you can say obviously the financial crisis in 2007-8 didn't help. The closure of the steelworks in 2015 didn't help. Going before the year before the year 2000, the loss of the industry and the deindustrialization, the changing of a very much worker labor economy to very much a service style economy where there was less job security, more zero hours contracts, no job security around pensions, working longer hours for lower pay, dropping in and out of jobs, doing a couple of jobs at once, more part-time work instead of full-time work, more contract work. So again, they all played into it. A rising service economy, especially since also one of the parts is like fast foods, takeaways, higher levels of inequality, crime driving up a lot. The drug scene in Teesside really has propelled in the last 20 years as well. Mental health cases as well. On those two things, Middlesbrough one stage, I believe, was one of the most popular sites for heroin. If not, like heroin was at one stage was so cheap you get it for £4 or £5. I read in the paper once, and then for mental health cases, it was for again in Middlesbrough or the South Tees or Teesside. It was saying that like male suicide rates are one of the highest within England. So again, it's just a telling sign. There's a whole range of factors can actually influence this. And again, so this map was made for the previous IMD one, so not the most recent one made in 2019. This was for 2015. And again, you can sort of see the levels of deprivation. So 20% means it's the 20% most deprived areas within England. And obviously, the further up you go, it's like 20%, 40%, 60%, 80% most deprived. Then the darkest blue is 20% in the least deprived. So that's like your very, very well off areas. And obviously your 20% most deprived is your very not so well off or your most deprived areas. So again, it's worth just looking at this here so you can see all the red. And if we were to compare that back to physical activity, again, a bit of pattern with the Hartlepool, the Redcar, centre wards of Middlesbrough, and again with the takeaway frequencies, starting to build a picture. Okay, it's by knowing your audience as practitioners in your area. So let's look at health deprivation hotspots. Number of people living in health deprivation hotspots. So all these are based off indices of multiple deprivation in 2015. So in Darlington alone, they reckon there's about nearly 38,000 residents who would live in these sort of areas, which equates to 35.5% of the Darlington population, well above the national average of just under 20%. That's the same for Hartlepool with 58,000 of its residents, with 62.2% of its own population, and Stockton-on-Tees, which is 96,000 residents hereabouts, equates to just under 50% of their population, both well above the actual national averages. In fact, over double, nearly 3 times the national averages. Middlesbrough, approaching 92,500 residents that'd be classed as this, and this equates to like almost 2/3 of its population living in a health deprivation hotspot. Again, like over trebling or tripling the national average. Then Redcar and Cleveland, 73,000, just over 50% of its population. So once you start putting some numbers and data, you can really start to see, like, wow, there's a lot of people who would be classed as unhealthy or ill health or facing health ailments, which again, you watch it really may think quite shocked, but at the same time, this is an opportunity for you guys get out there and actually doing some work on the ground, like helping your local community. Again, this is other one to bear in mind, and this is more from like the financial side. So obviously, been the news plenty at the end of last year, going into early this year. This was the free school meals, primary and secondary schools for the Tees Valley, Northeast, and England. So again, Oh yeah, so what I've done, I just realized it. So I have duplicated the actual screenshots. So I've got another slide which shows down Middlesbrough, Stockton, Hartlepool, Redcar, and Cleveland. And basically, what it's showing is that, depending on the actual local council and the year, how the frequency has increased over time. So whenever we look at the actual national average, just ignore these two tables here. We'll look at these two here. So from 2015 to 2018, we can clearly see in Tees Valley, like the frequency of free schools meals for primary school has increased, as well as for secondary schools, both well above the northeast and national averages. I heard in across Redcar, Cleveland, Stockton-on-Tees, and Middlesbrough is between 22 and 35% of all families are classed to be in poverty and needing some form of free school meal support. And you may think, well, how does this bear in mind physical activity and health as well? Parents may have to prioritize their finances to their kids, they provide them food, clothes, and education, so they may not be getting themselves fit, but also they may not have the funds to put their kids through extracurricular activities or after school sporting events as well. So again, physical activity of the whole family is going to be affected in some way, shape, or form. So again, the next metric we're using is hard pressed living, or HPL, which is defined as mostly on the fringe of the UK's urban areas, particularly in Wales and the north of England. High levels of people in terraced accommodation, high unemployment, low ethnic diversity, high levels of people employed in manufacturing. So Middlesbrough residents who are classed as HPL equals 53,000 and a bit, which is about just under 40% of its population, just over double the national average. Redcar and Cleveland, 56,585 residents at 42% of their population, which again over double the national average. Hartlepool, excuse me, 43,782, which is just under 50% of their population, which is almost triple the national average. Again, continuing, Stockton-on-Tees equals 61,326 residents, or just under a third of their population, which is again almost double the national average. And Darlington, 26,467 residents, or a quarter of their population, which is again significantly higher than the national average. So again, we're seeing all these things and thinking, well, what else does this affect? Well, obviously, I said like physical activity, but a lack of physical activity actually affects, life expectancy and healthy life expectancy. Before we go further, I'm just going to put my laptop on charge. Just 1 second. There we go. So what I've done is I've compared males and females for all the wards for all the local councils. This is based on the census data of 2011. So you can sort of see as you're going around the actual graph, if I use my mouse here instead of my hand, you can sort of see how different wards differ by gender, by life expectancy, and healthy life expectancy. This is all for adults, for males and females. So let's say if we're to pick out one here in Darlington, so Cochrane West for Darlington females. Again, so this is just above 80, which obviously the national life expectancy for females is about 83 years. And then their healthy life expectancy, again, is going to be below 50. Is it just above 50? Oh, sorry, it's just below 60, probably about 58, 56 to 58 there. Okay, let's look at the same thing for men. That was Cochrane West. It's Cochrane West. There we go, Cochrane West. So again, for males, we're looking at somewhere just above 70. So again, so that's about put me 78, 76, 76, 78. So again, there is a difference between men and women. And then their healthy life expectancy, again, we're looking at probably your mid 50s. So again, you can sort of see the actual differences across that. And this is the same for all of them. So we've got Stockton-on-Tees. You can see how, and also what the other thing that it highlights is the differences in the different wards within the Tees Valley. How some are very, very different. Record Cleveland, Middlesbrough. So Middlesbrough's got quite a lot of variance as well. So if I was to look at, let's see, it's like it's a common one. Really. Okay, so this one. So Middlehaven, yeah, Middlehaven's generally one of the worst. So that's below for females, below 50, and below 50 for men and women for healthy life expectancy, and again mid 70s for females life expectancy, and then for men, again it's on the 70, if not just below it, for life expectancy as well. So again, you can just sort of see the actual differences, and every place is going to be different as well. Drug and alcohol, it plays a part too. Tees Valley's got a very significant population of people with either active drug or alcohol addictions or in recovery. According to data, Stockton-on-Tees has a higher estimated rate of opiate and/or crack use, 15.1 per 1,000 population, compared to the regional 10.4 and national 8.6 averages. Hartlepool had the highest rate of admissions with 498 per 100,000 population in NHS 2018, and they're generally poisoned by illicit drugs. And the second highest was Middlesbrough with 68 per 100,000. This constitutes a specific population that, as research shown above, have specific health problems, including sedentary lifestyles, not just drug and alcohol. And again, continuing this on, I put in data for binge drinking and smoking, which we all know has a direct impact on one's health and how physical activity can be used to combat this. But these are the rates for all the local authorities. So again, all of them off the bat exceed the national averages for binge drinking and smoking. So Darlington is 28.5 over 20 and 24.7 over 22.2. Stockton is 28 over 20 and 25.4 over 22.2. Hartlepool 27.4 over 20 and 31.4 over 22.2. So a lot more smokers in Hartlepool. And drinking is definitely highest in Darlington. Record in Cleveland, 28.2 over 20 and 28.3, and Middlesbrough 20.5 over 20 and 33.6. So we've got Middlesbrough being the highest for smoking, and Darlington and Middlesbrough being the highest for binge drinking, it seems to be. So healthy eating, again, going back into our own area. So with what we already know with the lower activity, we've got the higher levels of deprivation and inequality. We've got the high levels of takeaways, fast foods, higher levels for drug and alcohol, smoking, binge drinking, and the range of life expectancies being lower than the national averages. We're going to sort of say, okay, so what's the rate of healthy eating by good? So is eating your 5 fruit and veg per day. So currently Harvard Middlesbrough. Okay, so I haven't put in Stockton in there. Oh, sorry, I actually have. I just haven't spaced out the paragraph. Yeah, so the number one is both got Darlington and Stockton. So we've got healthy eating for Darlington is below the national average, which is 23.5. National average being 20.7. Stockton, we've got 21.9, again below 28.7. Hartlepool, 19.3, below 28.7. Record Cleveland, 20.9, below 28.7. And Middlesbrough, 19.6, below 28.7. So very much Hartlepool and Middlesbrough being the least healthy eating rates as recorded, but closely followed by the rest of them, and all significantly lower than national averages. Again, the next one, crime rates. Obviously, crime in different forms can put off people from going outside, being active, the use of facilities, antisocial behaviour, gangs of youths, damaged facilities, properties, whatnot. It can actually put people off So I've done them for all, and I've done it by antisocial behaviour, criminal damage, violent crimes, and all crime scores. And this is at the national average per 1,000 population. So antisocial behaviour for Darlington is well above the national average of 34.6 over 21.3. Criminal damage, 14.8 over 8.6. Violent crime, 49.6 over 29.5. And all crimes, 148.9 over 104. Stockton, similar sort of scenario, but their antisocial behaviour is a lot higher at 46.5. Criminal damage, again, similar 14.3. Violent crime, 39.7. And all crime, 150.1. So, again, between the two, it's really just antisocial behaviour that makes the biggest leap between them. Hartlepool, again, antisocial behaviour quite similar, just slightly higher than Stockton's at 49.3. Criminal damage, slightly higher than the previous two at 17.1. Violent crime, again, similar, 46.9. But all crime, regardless of what it is a lot higher at 182.6. Redcar Cleveland, again, antisocial behaviour similar for the previous ones at 46.1. Criminal damage, again, slightly lower than Stockton. Was it Stockton last one? No, it's Harley, but slightly lower than Stockton's, but within that area of 15.7. Violent crime, again, still quite high at 36.6. And their all crime total is a lot lower at 142.5. Then we get to Middlesbrough. And again, this is a lot higher. So antisocial behaviour 69.6. So a lot, again, that spiked up. Criminal damage, again, a lot higher, 24.2. Violent crime 59.4, and all crime is 237.6. So by now you're starting to really see how all these factors can influence in areas life expectancy, physical activity, and general well-being. Now, obviously, as I'm writing this, there's only so much that I can put into slides. I wish I had time to put in stuff on like obesity rates, diabetes rates, the education of the area, gross domestic product, which is the GDP, gross value added of an area, employers' unemployed rates, mental health case rates, and COVID-19, and much, much more. So continuing on, so with all that there, trying to understand a special population, this is where my research comes into play. So my PhD started in 2019 October. It's called Investigating the Sedentary Lifestyles of Teesside, a combined government and local authority approach. It's a mixed methods approach. I'm in the School of Social Science, Humanities and Law. Supervisors are Dr. Anthony Lloyd and Professor Georges Antonopoulos, and this is in the area of social and health policy. So, as you've just witnessed there, the Tees Valley is dealing with a multifaceted array of factors as affecting its population's public health. These causes range from, but not limited to, socioeconomic status, life expectancy, unemployment, poverty, homelessness, crime, drug trafficking, obesity, and diabetes. These have contributed to a sharp rise in level of inactivity and sedentary lifestyles, which in turn is affecting the population's public health. Tees Valley residents are encouraged to participate in this research to express their views on what are the key barriers are inhibiting their healthy and active lifestyles, as well as to supply the research with their views on the region's provision to combat inactivity and support those looking to make a positive lifestyle change. So, obviously, I won't read this word for word because some of the slides are very text heavy, but just to give you an idea. So, I was using like a mixed methods approach, which uses both qualitative and quantitative data collection methods and analysis procedures. Green 2006 provides a really good description of this, which is a broad interpretation and use of the word methods in mixed methods allows inclusion of issues and strategies surrounding methods of data collection, e.g., questionnaires, interviews, observations, methods of research, experiments, ethnography, and related philosophical issues, ontology, epistemology, axiology. In our view, each of the three major approaches to research include assumptions, principles, and values about these kinds of methodology and practice related issues as parts of the research paradigm. Go. So, the main aims and objectives of my research. So, the primary aim of the research is to understand the sociological themes surrounding the barriers to a healthy and active lifestyles for those living in the Tees Valley region. It is underpinned by the following objectives: to identify different perceptions of inactivity across stakeholders responsible for health activity interventions within the Tees Valley, to examine perceptions of inactivity amongst residents and intervention service users within the Tees Valley, to evaluate current policy and strategies for combating inactivity in the Tees Valley at both local and national government levels, to correlate if the socioeconomic factors in the Tees Valley are related to the region's health inequality, and finally, to support the work of the Local Delivery Partnership, which is my collaborative partner tackling the health inequalities in the Tees Valley. Going back, this will form a key part of my work, the whole sociological theme. However, at this stage, I've only just finished collecting my data, and I'm only really just starting to understand the levels of physical activity and activity, which I'll then go on to show you how I've done it. So I've done two questionnaires. So one is asking residents in the Tees Valley about their own physical activity using the International Physical Activity Questionnaire. And additional questions about their local area, councils, wards, and feelings on activities, health barriers to a healthy and active lifestyle with reference to policy and local issues. Then the other side, I'm asking Tees Valley stakeholders and collaborators what their staff do, what they work on, and what sort of sectors they work within, that being education, sport, public health, coaching, drug and alcohol, mental health, gyms, science, whatnot. Ask them what they see and who their target audience, what needs to be done, and who they collaborate with. So the Tees Valley Residents Questionnaire was mainly a quantitative style questionnaire for half the questions, and then the rest of the questions are more qualitative with like Likert scale, open-ended. Yeah, I've got that in. There was about 63 questions in the Tees Valley questionnaire and just under 60 questions for the Tees Valley Stakeholder Questionnaire. Tees Valley Stakeholder Questionnaire was about 3/4 qualitative in nature. And again, there's 10 questions across each survey, which we can compare and contrast to see what the main differences between the professionals, i.e. the staff employed in this area, and the residents, and what they're seeing. So the International Physical Activity Questionnaire forms a big part of the Tees Valley Residents Questionnaire. And the main background of this is to provide a set of well-developed instruments that can be used internationally to obtain comparable estimates of physical activity. I used the LON, the IPAQ LON version to get all questions in. And kind of the rationale for using this was sedentary lifestyle is becoming a public health burden, and this is the way this question works is using surveillance tools to assess populations on a large scale, just to see, what they do inside the home, outside the home, at work, going to work, in their free time, walk, cycle, transport, and how active or inactive people are. And it's quite good because it's well used and as a validated questionnaire. And not only I can compare the Tees Valley residents, but I can compare it against national level populations too. And again, there's just a list of the references which proves its validity and reliability. Just going to leave that on the screen for a second. You can just see all that there. So I've got many collaborators and stakeholders involved with my research. Again, some of them you may know, some you may not have. So we got Teesside Uni, Middlesbrough Environment City, Middlesbrough Foundation, MEMA, Students' Union, Teesside Sport, Tees Valley Nature Partnership, Alliance Psychology, Hartlepool College, 13 Housing, Middlesbrough Council, Stockton-on-Tees Council, Public Health Societies, Health Watch, covering Stockton, Darlington, Redcar, Cleveland and Middlesbrough, NeuroKey, Youth Focus Northeast, Tees Valley Rural Action, Beyond Housing, Everyone Active, Tees Active, Tees Valley Sport, Darlington College, Sustrans, TS1, Tees Valley Sports, Tees Valley Combined Authority, the North York MERS, and a few others. So there's about 42 stakeholders involved, and this can cover multiple departments and groups, which takes it just over 50 sort of groups or contacts I have, which has definitely helped me sharing out the questionnaire and whatnot. Just trying to get the slides to go across. There we go. So my data collection aims, so this is from October 2020 to October 2021, had to be pushed back a little bit because of COVID and whatnot, but it was still feasible. The minimum aim was to collect 600 participants, 100 for the Tees Valley stakeholders, and 500 for the Tees Valley residents across various ages, employment levels, wards, all councils, and activity levels. Data was collected via 2 questionnaires, which were made to be used in person and online. However, due to COVID, they were all created just for online versions, just to prevent a risk of spreading COVID-19, and it was just easier to share online. Questionnaires were regularly shared to stakeholders, online forums, and messenger chat applications over a period of 20 weeks, not including the weeks at Christmas holidays. Main source of data was on the forums on Facebook representing local areas, aka wards. So Middlesbrough Centre Ward or Saltburn Town residents. I post in those sort of groups. In addition to COVID, many of the stakeholders could not actively share the questionnaire, nor were in a position to help out. Hence, I took upon myself to create a social media sharing strategy where I would share on certain days of the week and certain times to maximize impact. And again, I started sharing from the 1st of October to the end of February. And what I learned was, like, you gotta be patient when you're collecting your data. Just let it come in. Don't rush the process. You will get banned constantly from Facebook because they thought I was a bot. 99% of the people you meet in the forums will probably give you some help, and they're very polite about it. You just come across as being genuine, honest, explain what you want, and you will get like that small 1% who'll try and find fault with your work or say it's wrong. Just ignore them. They're just trolls. So again, how I'm going to analyze it, I'm going to use the IPAQ analysis form, and again, I've made myself an online link how to actually go on through it, which again I can show you. Hopefully, if it works. If not, just waiting for load. Okay, I don't think it's low there. It's a little bit slow, but basically it's just like a map showing how I'm bringing down my sets of data and like the different subgroups for it. That's all really. So, kind of like the more interesting stuff. Come to the last 10 minutes. That's okay. So I collected 1,240 participants, 741 females, 498 males. Other or prefer not to say was 9. Mean age across all groups was, or a combined score was 42.8. Mode age was 23. Mean age is 41. Youngest 15 and oldest is 100. So I'll have to remove a couple of them because they're under the age of 18. And again, looking at the age ranges, most are in the 18 to 24, 25 to 34 range. However, they get a significant amount who were 65 plus. I got 152 participants there. I'm still getting quite a lot from the 45 to 54 and 55 to 64 range as well. Again, breaking it down by council. Middlesbrough 394, Stockton 338, Darlington 130, Redcar and Cleveland 270, and Hartlepool 109. South Tees was 664. Again, that's just combining Middlesbrough and Redcar and Cleveland, just as a little observation. Employed was 543, full-time, part-time 170, combined 733, unemployed 62, students 153, self-employed 41, 200 were retired, disabled or medically can't work was 16, carers was 9, maternity leave 2, and other, which I couldn't really find a category for, was 34. Again, this is all the wards in the Tees Valley, which I'm happy to say we got at least one response from every single ward, all the way up to 73, 74 participants. I believe the highest was 73 in Centre Ward, Middlesbrough. Some reason Centre Ward just doesn't come up here, but that 73 represents that. So bringing down the actual results of it, So we're asking residents, so during the last 7 days, how many days per week did you do vigorous activities like heavy lifting, digging, or construction, or climbing upstairs as part of your work? So again, once a week, twice a week, 3 times a week, 4 times, and 5 times a week were all between 50 to 60 participants said yes. 6 times a week and 7 times a week, there was like 30 to 31 to 37 participants. Those that said no vigorous job activity came out as 70% of the sample, which was 876 participants. But you have to remember, most people may not have a physically demanding job. They may just work in an office. They may just teach and whatnot. So I'm not expecting everyone to respond this to be working on a construction site, doing manual labor or engineering. So again, this is asking the same question again, but the only difference is asking, what do you do moderate types of physical activity, such as carrying light loads at work? And again, for day one and day two is between, for 1 day per week or 2 days per week is between 54 and 64 participants. For days 3 and days 4, it was 88 participants and then 63 participants. For 5 days a week it was 101 participants. Then for 6 days per week it was 26, and then 7 days per week it was 59 participants. But again, nearly 2/3 of the sample say they do no form of moderate physical activity at work. And then the last one was insane. It was just asking participants, do you at least walk 10 minutes a day at work? Just like in and around the actual workstations and whatnot. So again, 1 day per week, 43 people, 2 days per week, 57, 3 days, 74, 4 days, 71, 5 days, 137 people, which is good. 6 days per week, 24, and 7 days per week, 109. So again, we are starting to see some improvements. However, nearly 60% of the entire sample do no form of walking at their work or job. And again, these are the average times. So vigorous activity at work based on 347 participants who do some form of it was 2.226 hours. For moderate activity work for 416 participants was 2.22 hours. And for walking at least 10 minutes per day for 567 participants was 2.51 hours. So the next one we're going to is transport. So it's like, during the last 7 days, how many days did you travel in a motor vehicle like train, bus, or car, tram? So I found this one particularly interesting because obviously during this day collection, as the most obvious thing is, we collect this all during COVID. And again, many people still use some form of motor vehicle to travel. Um, and everything. So again, yes, people may still be working from home, whatnot, but seems to be a lot of people who are still needing the use of their car and whatnot. So we got 1 day and 2 day a week was 106, 147 participants. 3 days and 4 days, 166, 126 participants. 5 days and 6 days, 183, and then drops down to 68. Then 7 days per week is 232 participants. And those who do no form of travel in motor vehicle was 220, so just under 20% of our sample. Again, this was quite a telling one. So there may be a select few people who you may even know these people who do cycle, because 92%, nearly 92.5% of our sample do no form of cycling whatsoever. Again, quite telling for the entire Tees Valley region. So let me just moving the slides over. A little bit slow. Slow load. Here we go. Yep. Again, just asking the last 7 days, did you walk for at least 10 minutes place to place? Again, this is obviously using walking as like your main method of doing like chores and out in the town doing messages, like just say popping the shops, post office, those things there. Again, 1 day per week, 78 participants, 2 days, 101, 3 days, 132, 4 days, 84, 5, 146, 6 days, 66, 7 days, 282. But no walking from place to place was just under a third, or under 30% at 28.8%. And again, the mean time scores for vehicles, cycling, and walking Methods, pardon me, based on how many people responded. Obviously, motor vehicles, over 1,000 people said they used it, cycling 171, and walking 874. All use some form of walking at varying frequencies throughout the weeks. So motor vehicle was 1.44 hours, cycling was 0.8 hours, and walking was 1.05 hours. So the next section is all from home. Slides forward, there we go. So again, this is asking participants thinking about activities that you did for home at least 10 minutes at a time as vigorous physical activities such as heavy lifting, chopping wood, shoveling snow, or digging in the garden or yard. Again, it's just a combined score. Obviously, this would be more sensitive once you look at it by ward and what council, because again, some areas are more urbanized than others. And again, this will obviously change drastically between because some people just live in like apartment blocks, student accommodation, lots of flats, whatnot. I mean, if I have access to their own yard, their own garden space. 1 day a week, 117, 2 days, 103, 3 days, 66, 4 days, 44, 5 days, 28, 6 days, 11, and 7 days, 53. And those who do no sort of vigorous activity in the garden yard is 826. So pretty much bang on 2/3 of our sample. Again, exact same question, but it's just moderate activities at home, outside, doing just like carrying light loads, sweeping, washing windows, raking the garden yard. And again, similar sort of numbers, however, just spread out more for between 1 and 3 days per week, 153, 151, 145. And for those who didn't do any form of moderate activity in the garden yard was just over a third, so 34.5%. So almost like a third moved from vigorous to moderate, you could say. And again, this is asking doing moderate activities, but inside the home, carrying light loads, washing windows, scrubbing floors, and sweeping inside your home. Again, what 1 day a week. Again, I know personally a lot of my friends may only do one day a week, or ex-housemates, whatnot. Again, generally 10 people tend to do it over 5 to 3 days per week, or some people do it every single day. They do some form of like chore, whatnot. And again, 246 say they do no form of moderate activity inside the home. And again, these are the various times. So vigorous activity was 1.36 hours on average for 458 participants. Moderate activity in the garden and yard for 813 participants was 1.17 hours. And moderate activity inside the home was 1.22 hours for 982 participants. So again, looking at physical activity, this is asking people know what do they do in their leisure time. So this is where you start finding it a bit more interesting. It's then looking at, okay, what people do in their free time. So it's asking them, do you at least walk for 10 minutes at a time in your leisure time? Again, 1 day, 106 said so, 2 days, 136, 3 days, 136, 4, 103, 503, 6 days, 30, and 7 days, 270. Nearly 30% of the entire sample does no form of walking in their free time. That's very interesting and does point to like a more sedentary level population, which that there sort of does lean towards, if you remember back that Tees Valley sport graph, infograph on how the areas were quite inactive between like your high 20s and your low 30s, or over 30% of the population in certain wards who didn't do any sort of activity. This would tend to support it. So again, asking the same question, but from the vigorous activity point of view. So asking people and residents to do cycling, swimming, quite vigorous, whatnot. And again, it really just drops off here. So you're really seeing is that nearly 2/3 of our sample do no form of vigorous activity in their free time. Now, this may be due to COVID or having access to actual gyms and whatnot, but again, this whole thing was taken over from October until end of February. So some people may be outside more, maybe running, bodyweight training, kettlebells. Some people may have their own home gym. Some people may go outside on the bike as well. But again, I can understand many people not being able to go to the gym or do like a proper class that they would like to. However, people now doing online training, such as the Joe Wick's online classes, but again, I can understand why this number is so high. So nearly 2/3 of the sample do no form of vigorous activity per week. And then moderate activity. I find this one interesting as well because again, 76 over 3/4 of sample do no form of moderate activity in their free time as well. Again, very, very, very telling that not only that COVID's had an impact of lockdown areas, but the area is very sedentary as well. The other big factor is how long people spend actually doing, like, what will they do instead? Are they working? Are they sitting? Are they just relaxing? Do they have anything to actually do? We'll go on to that one in just a sec. So this is like the average hours and times. So we've got the vigorous activity mean for 529 participants was 1.7 hours. Moderate activity mean was 0.9 hours for 342 participants, and walking for at least 10 minutes for 905 participants was 1.22 hours. Guess let me scroll across the slides again. So what we're looking at sitting times, okay? So during the last 7 days per week, how much time would you usually spend sitting on a weekday? That's Monday to Friday. So the average participant responded, and that's the score we got back was 8.83 hours per day. Asked the same question, but just at the weekends, so Saturdays and Sundays, 6.56 hours per day spent sitting. And the average per week was 7.64 hours per day spent sitting. And again, this is just the graphs, just look at this, this is just obviously participants from 1 to the very last participant we got, just how it looks. And this is obviously time spent sitting over the weekend. This is like the better graph laying out. So that's like a box plot where we can also show like the medians, the ranges, and also see kind of like the frequency of some people's hours logged and whatnot. Same times averages, again, that's compared during the week as well. Just another way of saying it. Now, these next series of questions were after the IPAQ, because again, I've still got more analysis. But again, this is important for you to know, to understand the population. So I was asking them, do you think there's a public health crisis in the Tees Valley region? Over 50% said yes. Nearly a third said maybe. And under 5% said no. So there's clear, like, there's something not right with the health in this region based on the resident scores. How would you score the health of the Tees Valley? 1 being healthy and 5 being unhealthy. To expand, that's like, do you think the area was quite healthy? Active, good, a clean environment. It promotes physical activity, whatnot. And again, less than 1.2% said it was healthy. 5 said directly it was unhealthy. 500. So you're looking at, for let's say, scores 4 and 5. Looking at 55% of this sample would class it as being somewhat unhealthy or very or unhealthy. Over a third are like unsure in the middle. But again, you're looking at less than 8% are classed as being healthy. Again, this question here, obviously I'd have to go back and reanalyze it per council to get a more sensitive score. So asking residents, how would you score the health of your local council? Again, being healthy and unhealthy. So 1 and 2, so you're looking at just under 11-12% think their councils are healthy, or like the area is quite healthy. Over 50% are kind of in the middle. But then obviously you're looking at is over a third think their councils are unhealthy to some extent as well. Again, this one you will find quite interesting. This is the barriers to being physically active in the Tees Valley. So again, these will differ once I do a more in-depth analysis by per council, by gender as well, and by age too. So time, 670 people said that was a main physical barrier. Money, family commitments, work, job, disability, ill physical health, lack of access, lack of education, cultural reasons, don't have an interest, either age, their own gender, lack of provision for activities, there's no incentives to them to do it, the distance, mental health, crime, religious reasons. So you can see there's a plethora of reasons why people feel like they can't be active or they can't increase their activity here in the Tees Valley. Again, as I then asking more questions around the actual local councils and stuff for the residents. So do you think your local council within the Tees Valley Combined Authority is doing enough to tackle the public health challenges facing the region? 1 being terrible and 5 going above and beyond expectations to tackle said challenges. So again, 1 and 2, you're looking at 13, 24, you're looking at, 30, 37% of the population think that local council isn't doing enough. 47 and a half, so under 50%, or sort of like in the middle, unsure. And then 4 and 5, so you're looking at under 15% are thinking they are doing well. So there's something there going on, supports the previous questions. Do you think the actual Tees Valley Combined Authority are doing enough to tackle the public health challenges facing the region? Again, 1 being terrible, 5 going above and beyond expectations. And again, 1 and 2, you're looking at is just under 35%, or they don't think so. But then you're looking at is, just under 11, 12% are thinking it is. And then again, over 50% aren't really sure. And again, the next one, how do you rate the public health service in the promotion of physical activity in the region? And again, you're looking at over 40% think it isn't good, it's bad, it's terrible. 43% aren't sure in the middle. And again, you're looking at under 15% think it's actually being done well. So there seems to be a consistent theme going across. So this one here was a single answer choice, was looking at, okay, asking residents, what do you think should be done for the area? More local collaboration with organisations, bigger spending and budget, level interventions, more education from schools, more support from local government to tackle local health issues. Again, all around the quarter percentage wasn't really a standout one from that, all quite similar. But then also when you allow people to do the multiple choice, what was they actually picked? Again, a lot of people were picking a range of responses here as well. So again, this is just some of the analyses here. Again, some of the relationships of the data that I found. Again, just scroll through them, leave them up on screen for you to see. So this is gender and council by activity levels in leisure time and looking at walking. So again, what I find is females in Redcar and Cleveland walk the most frequently across 7 days a week, and males walk the most frequently across 7 days a week in Middlesbrough, Redcar and Cleveland. However, females and males in Middlesbrough also record the lowest frequency across 7 days a week by not walking 10 minutes a day, and that was for 57 and 70 participants. So these are the type of relationships I can start to find out and seeing what's actually going on in the area. So females in Stockton on Tees are the least frequent engaging in vigorous activity in leisure time. So 152 females from Stockton said they engage in no form of vigorous activity during the week. And males in Middlesbrough also displayed the least amount of vigorous activity in their leisure time, had 109 participants across 7 days per week. Let's look at another one. Employment, gender employment. Okay, yeah. So this is gender by employment, looking at moderate activity. Again, this is using this is like transport, asking them and everything. So again, females in Stockton Tees recorded the highest levels not using a bike. So 215 females in Stockton do no cycling whatsoever. Males in Middlesbrough recorded the highest levels not using a bike of 174. But females in both Middlesbrough and Redcar and Cleveland recorded 1 day a week each. Sorry, each recorded one participant each for using their bike 7 days a week. And males in Redcar and Cleveland recorded the highest rate of using their bike, which is 2 participants for 7 days per week. Again, scrolling across the slides again. Again, you can sort of see what I'm trying to do, trying to understand all these different relationships, how different activities affect different areas, different regions by employment, gender, age, and the actual level of inactivity and/or activity. So I can see many more relationships and data themes are to be found, and it will take time, but you can see how this will impact health policy, transport, infrastructure, individual organizations, health assessments, levels of activity and/or activity in the region. Again, these are some of the potential PhD outputs from it. So a full physical activity report on Tees Valley physical activity levels from October 2020 to March 2021. Thematic analysis of comparing the residents versus the professional staff opinions. Tees Valley Health Policy Report, research review and recommendations. Specific ones of physical activity of students during COVID-19, physical activity of Tees Valley residents during COVID-19, IPAQ of Tees Valley 65+-year-olds during COVID, IPAQ by employment, 5 council reports, and again, relationship of fast food outlets, inactivity and health inequalities in the Tees Valley. What's new and how does this work actually contribute to the area? Well, it's the only ever study done in the Tees Valley to use the IPAQ with a sample size over 1,000 participants. It helps to contribute to the global evidence to reach consensus on sitting time because there still isn't an actual value or number placed on what is classified as a detrimental amount of time spent sitting. So again, this hopefully adds some weight and support to that. It's the biggest physical activity study done in the Tees Valley to date that I'm aware of. Policy implications for private, government and commercial sectors. To use for funding bids, evidence-based practice and a reference for health in time and date for the region. It's one of the few studies right now in the UK that assess activity during COVID-19 lockdown since 2020. Obviously, I never initially went out in my PhD to plan COVID, but it just happened and I have to factor it into my work. I'm going to try and create a Tees Valley health matrix, and obviously all the stakeholders involved in it can use it to improve, assess and change their own policies and strategies to better understand and help the residents of the area. So how can you use this research? Well, you can better plan how you can get new clients to your area work, be able to understand what barriers to activity that they may be facing, specialize around set populations in the area, have specific interventions for their needs, and see how different demographical factors can have such an impact on one's level of activity. So again, just wrapping up, some useful sites. We've got the World Health Organization, British Journal of Sports Medicine, American College of Sports Medicine, the Wright Foundation, Sport England, Tees Valley Sport, UK Government Index and Multiple Deprivation. And again, I've put in the links to some of the data sets and files I have used. All going across here. So conclusion and recap of the lesson. There's so much more just to the psychological and physiological components of a client. The environment, socioeconomic status, political landscape, and their employment all have a bearing on one's health. Within a town or region, there are stark and massive gaps in life expectancy and physical activity levels. Two people of the same age, gender, employment, location of living may experience different levels of activity based on just a few factors. Think wider than just a training program to tackle one's physical activity needs. Thank you very much for listening. I hope you enjoyed that. Again, if you got questions and answer, just drop me an email. My email's a.s.richardson@tees.ac.uk, and hope to see you again on campus soon. Look after yourselves, and thank you very much for letting me tell you all about the work I'm doing. I hope it's of use. Do fire me questions and be critical, because obviously this will help me out in the long run too. So if you're saying, Andrew, I didn't understand this, or have you thought about this? I'm more than happy to answer it. Hopefully, when I do respond, it'll just be because If I haven't put something in, it's just because of time. That was it. But I'm more happy to give you a more in-depth uh, answer. But if it is something I haven't thought of, I will thank you for that, and that's something I'll factor into my own research. But thank you again. Thank you very much for listening.